Hi everyone, it's Sunday afternoon, hanging out in the studio. Thought I would record another one of these, just talking to the camera about something that I wrote last year actually that keeps sticking with me. It keeps coming up as and I think everybody else, sort of continue to reckon with AI, generative AI, and what it means for music, and more broadly, what it means for creativity, for human creativity. So like a lot of people, I really liked Adam Neely's video about Suno AI. I think it's called Suno AI and the Bad Future. He put it out a couple weeks ago. If you're watching this, you almost certainly saw it. If you haven't seen it, I would say go watch it. It's a fantastic video, just a really thorough and far-reaching examination of the implications of AI, and specifically music generative AI like they're doing at Suno, which is, I would say, the highest profile AI music company. And he raised a lot of really interesting questions. He goes in a ton of different directions. At the end, he starts getting into this idea of live music, and that live music will, in this AI age, kind of have a new emphasis placed on it and a new value ascribed to it, because live music is just something that AI can't do. Adam is a jazz musician. I am as well. I think jazz presents a really helpful counterpoint, I suppose, to AI music, because I can't think of a type of music more opposite of an AI country song that you listen to than a jazz quartet in a room playing live for people. It seems to me to be about the farthest you can get from something that AI made. AI cannot do that. It can't create anything close to an approximation of the experience of four people in a room together improvising. That is just not really what it's about. And I think that's very true, and it actually kind of fits in with something that I wrote last year, this essay called Follow the Spark, that was me trying to articulate some thoughts I've had about what music is and how to think of it in the age of AI, how to kind of delineate between different types of music or different ways to experience music, because AI is kind of forcing these questions. Something I have found remarkable about the AI era that we're in is that it's forced me to ask questions about the very nature of the things that I like. What is music? That's a really academic sounding question, and it's the kind of question that for most of my life as a creative person and as a musician, I just never would have thought to ask it, because I don't know, who cares? What is music? Whatever. I have to learn the changes on this song for this gig. Like, I got to practice. You can go ahead and ask those academic questions, but for now, I have much more practical concerns. I would say that now it's become a practical matter for a lot of musicians to understand this stuff, because it's kind of key to how we're going to distinguish ourselves from AI, given that AI can create such convincing fake music and at such volume that human musicians could never truly compete. So as a result, I've been kind of poking at the question and thinking about it in my own way and trying to articulate it. So that's what this article was about, and I'm just going to kind of go through it because I think it would be a helpful thing to contribute, and I'm guessing that some people who watch stuff on YouTube didn't read the essay. You could always go and read it, but I'll just share kind of the gist of it here and read a couple of sections of it. The essay is called Follow the Spark, and it's about the idea that if you really want to understand what music is, and this could probably be applied to any other art form, but I'm sticking with music. If you want to really understand what music is, you can kind of trace it back to what I call the spark, which is the moment that the idea becomes real, the moment that the sound enters the world and becomes something that everyone can hear. To me, I think that's a really important moment, and it's the moment that when I identify it, it then helps me understand what it is that I'm experiencing, be that a recording or a recording of a live performance or, an AI remixing 10,000 live performances into something that kind of sounds like a live performance. It helps me kind of understand what it is that I'm listening to and kind of weight it accordingly. So I came up with kind of 6 different ways that we encounter the spark, and I listed them more or less in order of diffusion, or as we get farther and farther from the purest, most direct incarnation of the spark. So I'm just going to go through them, and I'll kind of read those entries to you. 1. Me and my little spark. The first, most basic spark is the one that happens when you're alone. maybe you're practicing, maybe you're writing a song, every minute spent with an instrument in your hands might generate 100 new sparks. Our first listener is always ourselves, and oddly enough, we're able to surprise ourselves just as well as any other kind of listener. However much you prepare, you never know exactly what's going to happen when your thought meets reality. Sometimes a simple scale exercise can become a brand new song. This is something I'm sure anyone out there who's played an instrument is familiar with. There's this thing that happens when the perfect thought in your head meets reality. When I'm practicing guitar, when I'm practicing saxophone, certainly, or singing, I'll hear the perfect little thing in my head, and then I go to make it real, and maybe it just doesn't come out quite the way that I imagined, or maybe I hit the string differently, or my intonation or my tone is a little different than I was imagining, or maybe my fingers just automatically go to a second chord or a second melody that I wasn't expecting, and before I know it, that thought in my head has become something new. That's kind of the spark in its purest form. And I don't mean to say that's the best, but that is pretty pure when it's just you and this one spark, and then you kind of grab it out of the air maybe, and you pull it into yourself, and then it comes out in a new spark, and it's like this constant process of refining and iterating and listening to what you just played, almost as though you're an outside observer. It's a really interesting thing our brains do, particularly when we're playing music. Daniel Levitin, the writer, he wrote This Is Your Brain on Music, among many other wonderful books. He talks about this really wonderfully in his books. It's an amazing, kind of fascinating concept, especially if you've experienced it. And like I said, I bet any of you out there who play instruments have. It's something that constantly happens to me when I'm practicing. And it's kind of cool that you can be an audience member for your own music. So that's the first spark. It's just, what happens anytime you play an instrument. 2, my spark shared with you. It's one thing to make sparks by yourself, but when you perform for others, everything changes. The audience provides a rush of oxygen, and each spark becomes brighter and more unpredictable. And the thing about performing is the spark can spread. The audience may not be creating music of their own, but they are still participating in a shared ritual. Each spark you make spreads through them in countless, often imperceptible ways. So this felt worth mentioning because it's really cool when it's just you by yourself. Like, I cherish that experience of being by myself and writing because anything is possible. The moment you try to make the song real, you still kind of own it because no one else has heard it, right? It may not sound the way that you want it to sound, and you kind of work on it forever, and there's this kind of magical period of time where it's only yours, that song that you're writing, and it could still be anything. But eventually you go and perform it for people, and for me anyways, that's also a really important moment. It's the moment when the thing that I've been creating becomes real in a certain way because other people experience it. So I take my spark and I throw it out into the air. It's the moment of performance. It can be just, you're playing for your significant other, or you're playing for your family, or for your dog, even your cat, or you're playing for 100 people at a coffee shop. And I'm picturing just one person here sharing their ideas with a crowd. I think that is a kind of noteworthy version of this, of the spark coming out into the air, into the world, and just being experienced by other people. It causes it to grow and spread in ways you didn't expect. Anyone out there who has performed a song for someone else, it becomes something different in that moment. It's a really special and a really cool thing. 3, our sparks shared with one another. Solo performance is all well and good, but music is meant to be played with others. When a group of musicians plays together, their sparks spread and cascade across the ensemble, glowing and blazing and replicating, guttering out and sparking anew. There are a few things I enjoy more than sitting down with other musicians and just playing. Maybe we get a beautiful shower of radiance, maybe we get a wet campfire. The sparks are there either way. So this is basically when you rehearse with other musicians. You're not performing for a big group, it's just you and however many other people, but it is still a sort of performance, and there's this kind of shared aspect to how the sparks generate and spread, In a rehearsal, you can get really excited. Someone can be like totally killing it on their part and everybody else gets excited, or you start improvising together, you make something up and head in an unexpected direction. This is kind of another really magical thing. It feels somewhat like that cherished personal space when you're practicing by yourself, but you're sharing it with some other musicians. And this is also, I think, a unique and distinct manifestation of creativity, that you are all being creative together and fueling one another's creativity directly. You're all playing instruments. You are both audience and performer and ensemble all at the same time. 4, are sparks shared with everyone. When you watch a band perform, you're sharing in their ritual of spark transference. It's happening in front of you on stage, but you're part of it too, whether or not you're dancing or singing along. This is the same idea as a solo performer performing for a crowd. There's just something that happens with an audience where the audience picks up that energy, the sparks spread to them, and they can throw them back to the performers. There's this kind of wonderful energy transfer that happens. With a group, it's even more exciting, and this is, the bulk of performances that you'll go to. You go see a band, go see certainly a jazz group or anyone with any element of improvisation. But even if they don't have that, there's just something about the energy between the players on stage that then spreads out to the audience. And this is, this profound, primal, kind of ancient human thing that we all do to connect with one another. You can get the audience clapping, you can get the audience singing. That connects even more deeply to that shared experience. This is the magic of what music is. And to me, that is kind of maybe the highest form of what music can be. It's this incredible thing that humans develop that allows us to connect to one another in this spiritual way that doesn't require language. It doesn't even require a kind of cognizant understanding. It's this purely emotional thing. It lets us tap our emotions to one another. And that's kind of what it feels like to me, is these sparks flying, this fire burning at its greatest. And it is a really powerful thing. It's certainly much more complex than when you're sitting by yourself practicing and suddenly a scale exercise becomes a song, but it's the same fundamental practice. And you can see how it all connects, right? How each of these examples has this commonality. You can go back to the beginning and you can trace that spark all the way out to a much more complex incarnation. It's all kind of the same thing. As long as you follow the spark, you can keep track of where you are. 5. Frozen sparks for sale. Today, the word music often refers to recorded music, such that we need to specify live music when talking about something that is in fact far more fundamental. Making a record is the act of freezing a spark, preserving it on wax or tape or in computer code. Playing a record means reproducing that same spark on demand. An album is really just a collection of frozen sparks ready to be thawed. That may sound dismissive, but I don't mean it that way. Recorded music is a beautiful, powerful thing. It can spread an artist's creative spark to a theoretically limitless number of listeners. It allows musicians to earn income from their art in new and, at least theoretically, more sustainable ways. And while the recorded spark may be unchanging, we as listeners are not. That's why my favorite albums hit me differently each time I listen. We're always in flux, and an open mind exists in a constant state of joyful rediscovery. It's one of the best things about being alive, and not for nothing is also the whole premise of strong songs. So this is a really important distinction, I think, the distinction between live music and recorded music. This is something that Adam Neely was talking about at the end of his video, and I think it's something that is going to be very important over the next 10 years. Music isn't really recorded music. At some point, most of the music that people experienced became recorded music, and as a result, I think that's kind of why the word music is just used to refer to recorded music. And live music is actually the type of music that requires the designator ahead of it, right? The fact that we call it live music. But really, what is music? Music is the thing I've been talking about. Music is something that human beings make together. It is this profoundly human thing. And recorded music is an amazing byproduct of technology, but it's only been with us for, 150 years or something. But it is relatively new. Music has been around for tens of thousands of years. So when it comes down to it, I think that it is important to think about that distinction and to understand what recorded music is. It's this amazing thing. It is possible to listen to the sparks that were generated decades or even, centuries ago, to hear music as it existed and was made between people in different parts of the world, in different eras. It's a really cool thing, and it's also a new art form. Recorded music is its own whole separate art form. I've dedicated a lot of years now and a lot of podcast episodes to understanding that art form and talking about recorded music and how it's made, because it's so interesting and it lends itself to analysis because it has been frozen and preserved in the way that it has been. But I do think that it is important to think about how different that is from what music fundamentally is and what it has been for most of human history. And I think that's more important now than ever to understand that distinction for the reasons I already explained at the beginning, that AI is creating recorded music, right? As a result, I think it's going to be really helpful to be able to clearly have a solid grasp on the difference between recorded music and actual live music made between human beings. 6. A Spark smoothie blended just for you. AI music is the current catch-all term for software that algorithmically duplicates, deconstructs, and reassembles the musical sparks of others. In the interest of keeping this essay focused, I'm going to leave aside the pressing legal and ethical questions raised by the methods through which some of these models were trained. While it's now possible to get a custom-made pop song by typing a prompt into an AI music generator, whenever I hear that stuff, it leaves me wondering what it even is that I'm listening to. In those moments, I find it helpful to follow the spark. When an AI model grinds up 10,000 pop songs and spits out a convincing sound alike, where were the sparks? As I listen to the sounds the model generates, how far am I from the moment those sparks first ignited? The answer is pretty damn far. That does not render the generator's creation wholly inert or artistically worthless. Even the most degraded AI song can generate a new spark in its listener, who might then go on to produce more sparks of their own. But it is important to recognize what has taken place. The listener's connection to that original spark, frozen in the recording studio and preserved in time, has been all but severed. So there is a much larger conversation to be had about the nature of AI art, what it means in terms of our humanity, our culture, our politics, certainly. I think Neely has done a great job of getting into all of that stuff, but I do think that framework of following the spark, it just seems like something useful that I might be able to contribute. It's something that's been useful for me since I wrote that essay. It's a bit of a lodestar for me. It's something that I use to orient myself whenever I'm thinking about these questions and trying to understand what I'm listening to and why I'm reacting to it the way that I am. So I hope that that's helpful for some of you and provides a useful framework. The record I'm sitting next to is the Meters 1969 self-titled record. This is a killing record that I have been listening to a lot lately. I did an episode a few years back now about funk grooves, talking about Zigaboo Modaleste's groove on Sissy Strut. But man, Leo Nocentelli, the guitar player from the Meters, what a bad dude. He's so good. Another funk 335 player who I just really love, and I've been studying him a lot, just trying to get his feel down. This is a killer record. These are some guys who are in the room making sparks, and I'm very glad that they preserved that spark for us all to listen to. So there's some listening for you if you want something to listen to. All right, that'll do it for now. I'll be back with something or other at some point. Thanks as always for watching.